The story begins with a young Frank growing up in New Rochelle, New York in the 1960s. Frank's family faces their own struggles as financial difficulties strain their relationships. Despite the challenges at home, young Frank idolizes his father, admiring his success and confidence. However, as time goes on, the strain becomes too much, and Frank's parents eventually divorce, leaving him feeling lost and alone. Seeking solace and adventure, Frank decides to run away from home. He embarks on a life of deception, starting with the forgery of checks. With determination and meticulous attention to detail, Frank perfects the art of counterfeiting. Along the way, he becomes fascinated by the glamorous lifestyle of airline pilots and sets his sights on impersonating them. Researching tirelessly, Frank gathers information about pilots, studying their habits, uniforms, and protocols. Frank's dreams become a reality as he successfully assumes the identity of a pilot, putting on a uniform and relishing the perks of the profession. Using his pilot persona, he continues his check forgery spree while flying around the world. However, his criminal activities catch the attention of FBI agent Carl Hanratty, who becomes determined to capture Frank. Carl's tenacity and resourcefulness lead him to discover Frank's apartment, narrowing the gap between them. As the cat-and-mouse game between Frank and Carl intensifies, Frank comes up with a daring plan to escape. Posing as an undercover agent, he cleverly evades Carl's pursuit, leaving him baffled and frustrated. Frank's conscience begins to weigh on him as he questions the morality of his actions. He reaches out to Agent Carl, expressing his desire to put an end to his life of crime. Meanwhile, Frank's desire for a normal life and genuine connections leads him to the hospital, where he meets Brenda, a young nurse. Captivated by her kindness and beauty, Frank uses his charm to gather personal information from her. Unbeknownst to him, Brenda will play a crucial role in his life, testing his loyalty and challenging his convictions. Driven by his longing for authenticity, Frank assumes various identities, including that of a doctor and a lawyer, blurring the line between truth and forgery. Deeply in love with Brenda, Frank promises her that he will marry her and build a future together. With a newfound determination, he sets out to win the approval of Brenda's parents. He charms them with his wit, intelligence, and promises of a stable and loving life for their daughter. Amidst his pursuit of a normal life, Frank receives news that his estranged father is in town. Curiosity and a yearning for reconciliation lead him to seek out his father. Their interactions are filled with a mix of emotions: reconciliation, regret, and unresolved issues. Frank desperately wants his father's approval and forgiveness, hoping to heal the wounds of their past. In a moment of self-reflection and realization, Frank reaches out to Agent Carl, revealing the truth about his impending marriage. He expresses his sincere desire to leave his life of deception behind and start anew. In the midst of planning their future together, Frank and Brenda's wedding day arrives. The joyous occasion is filled with love, laughter, and the promise of a new beginning. As the ceremony commences, Frank catches a glimpse of Carl lurking in the shadows. Panic sets in as he realizes that his past is catching up with him at the very moment he hoped for a fresh start. Frank's secret life catches up with him. Agent Carl closes in on his location, threatening to expose his true identity and jeopardize everything he has worked for. Facing the possibility of losing Brenda and the life they have planned, Frank must think quickly to evade Carl's capture. Frank confesses to Brenda about his lies, revealing the full extent of his past deceptions. He bares his soul, hoping that she will understand and forgive him for the mistakes he has made. The couple faces a moment of truth, where their love and trust are put to the ultimate test. Realizing that the walls are closing in on him, Frank arranges a secret meeting for Brenda to escape with him. He prioritizes her safety above all else, determined to protect her from the consequences of his actions. In a race against time, they navigate a dangerous web of deception and uncertainty. Unknown to Frank, Carl sets a trap, using Brenda as bait to capture him. As their worlds collide, Frank must rely on his wit and resourcefulness to outsmart Carl and ensure their survival. The stakes have never been higher as he faces the possibility of losing everything he holds dear. In a stroke of brilliance, Frank assembles a group of beautiful girls as air hostesses, blending in seamlessly and successfully evading Carl's pursuit. They disappear into the crowds, leaving Carl frustrated and determined to track them down. Agent Carl, fueled by determination, finally tracks down Frank to a sprawling, dimly lit warehouse on the outskirts of town. As Carl cautiously approaches the building, he notices the faint sounds of machinery and the flickering lights emanating from within. Carl bursts into the warehouse, his heart pounding with anticipation. The scene unfolds in a tense standoff as Frank, aware of Carl's presence, attempts to evade capture. The two engage in a thrilling chase through the labyrinthine corridors of the warehouse, filled with stacks of crates and machinery. Despite Frank's agility and resourcefulness, Carl's relentless pursuit eventually corners him. Carl's voice echoes through the empty halls as he commands Frank to surrender. Defiant yet exhausted, Frank realizes he has reached the end of the line. He reluctantly raises his hands in surrender, knowing that the game is finally over. While being transferred to a new prison facility, Frank receives the devastating news of his father's passing. The weight of guilt and remorse crashes down upon him as he reflects on the fractured relationship he had with his father. Amidst the sorrow, a newfound determination takes hold of Frank, pushing him to seek redemption for his past transgressions. During a chaotic airport scene, Frank expertly maneuvers through crowds and security checkpoints, blending in effortlessly. Using his well-honed skills of deception, he evades the persistent pursuit of Agent Carl, slipping through the fingers of the law once more. With every successful evasion, Frank's desire to leave his life of crime behind intensifies. Driven by a mix of curiosity, longing, and a desire for closure, Frank tracks down his estranged mother's new residence. As he approaches the quaint house, he observes a happy family inside, a husband, wife, and children. The realization of his mother's happiness, coupled with the absence of his own presence in her life, causes conflicting emotions to surge within Frank. Unknown to Frank, Agent Carl, relentless in his pursuit, finally catches up with him at his mother's home. The time for running is over. They both know it. Overwhelmed by a sense of responsibility and the consequences of his actions, Frank, for the first time, willingly surrenders himself to the waiting police officers. As handcuffs are placed around his wrists, Frank accepts the fact that he must face the repercussions of his crimes. It is a bittersweet moment, marking the end of his tumultuous journey as a fugitive. The weight of his past catches up with him as he is sentenced to 12 years in prison, a definitive period of time for reflection, penance, and a chance to rebuild his life from scratch. During one of Frank's visits from Agent Carl in prison, a surprising proposition is laid before him. Carl, recognizing Frank's exceptional skills and understanding the potential value of his unique perspective, offers him a chance at redemption. He proposes that Frank work for the FBI, utilizing his expertise to help catch other fraudsters and protect innocent people from falling victim to scams. Intrigued by the possibility of making amends and using his talents for good, Frank deliberates on Carl's offer. Despite the risks and the lingering doubt within him, Frank ultimately accepts the opportunity. Determined to prove his worth and make a positive impact, he agrees to collaborate with the FBI, embarking on a new chapter of his life, a chance to become more than just a notorious con artist. With his decision made, Frank immerses himself in his new role within the FBI. Working alongside Carl and his team, he channels his unparalleled knowledge and skills towards capturing fraudsters and bringing them to justice. As he helps dismantle criminal operations and protect innocent victims, Frank gradually transforms from a notorious swindler into a respected asset within the agency. Through his actions, he finds redemption and a purpose that gives meaning to his past and shapes his future. If you like this video, please consider subscribing to my channel. It would help me a lot. Guess the movie title in comments section.